My girl, my little girl! Help me!
Just moments ago on the roof, Casey and Kelly were smoking cigars. A man ran towards the firehouse carrying his little girl begging for their help. The two of them familiarly slid down the ladder and called out for paramedics. They laid the girl flat on the ground. Blood was streaming from the girl's eyes. The man said his daughter had been eating a hot dog and then this happened. Dawson said she was choking and she was probably trying to cough, which caused blood vessels to burst. The man worried if she might go blind. Dawson said they needed to get her breathing again first. At that moment, Sylvie brought forceps to try to remove the object in the girl's throat. She was extremely careful, afraid of injuring her throat. But luckily, the hot dog was successfully removed in the end. The girl started breathing again. The father was eternally grateful and
I
said,
see you guys race out onto the street every day. I will never complain about the sirens again. That we could help.
A 6-year-old girl sat motionless on the ground. The teacher said she kept falling down while practicing dance, and she didn't say a word. The paramedic tried to communicate with the girl, but found her responses unusually slow, with slightly weak breathing at the same time. At this moment, a classmate from the girl's dance class approached.
Something wrong?
Sally did something really bad.
What did she do?
Sally drank this. She thought it was candy.
Oh my God.
60% alcohol.
To their surprise, the 6-year-old girl was drunk. Sylvie quickly laid her flat, prepared to start intravenous fluids. But things took a turn for the worse. The blood vessel burst upon insertion. Jimmy quickly measured her blood pressure, which was off the charts. It definitely wasn't an alcohol issue. Suddenly, the girl started seizing violently. The two had to hold her down with force and needed Verst to control the seizing. But with such high blood pressure, they were going to have to drill.
Fast and steady.
Felisa spent $20,000 on a Lucky Charm bracelet. The day after she put it on, the iron chandelier above her suddenly came crashing down. Her assistant Alexis screamed in terror. Firefighters arrived and found Felisa still alive, though the chandelier was firmly pinning her down. The sharp spikes of the chandelier had pierced deep into the floor. Buck tried to lift it, but it wouldn't budge. They had no choice but to cut the spikes off one by one. After a careful inspection, the firefighters found that Felisa had no penetrating injuries. Miraculously, all the spikes had missed her body. She only had a wound on the back of her head. The wound had bled a lot, but it turned out to be far less severe than it looked. Felisa was convinced that the bracelet had protected her. Without it, she believed she would have been skewered. Chim asked if she was in any pain. Felisa said she felt nothing at all. This wasn't a good sign. She might have suffered a spinal injury. Chim removed her shoes and lightly tickled the sole of her right foot. Felisa burst out laughing. This was a good sign her right foot still had feeling. Then he tickled her left foot. This time she felt nothing. Her spine could be injured, and she needed to be rushed to the hospital for further evaluation. The firefighters covered her with a blanket and began cutting through the chandelier spikes. Once the cutting was complete, they carefully removed the chandelier. Chim asked how she felt afterward. Felisa said she could feel a sharp pain in her left leg. This was a promising sign. Her spinal injury might not be severe, or it could just be nerve compression from the chandelier. Alexis chimed in with relief, declaring it must have been the bracelet that worked its magic. The man accidentally knocked over a pot of hot wax, spilling it directly onto the woman's face. Realizing the serious trouble he had caused, the man quickly slipped away, leaving her behind. A few minutes later, staff arrived at the scene and was horrified by what she saw. The wax had already solidified, completely blocking the woman's nose and mouth. Paramedics arrived shortly after. When they saw the familiar bracelet on her wrist, they were stunned. Wasn't this the same Felisa who had narrowly escaped a falling chandelier just days ago? They quickly calmed Felisa down. Once she relaxed, Hen took a scalpel and carefully made an opening around her mouth, but the problem wasn't solved. Her throat was also clogged with wax, making it impossible for her to breathe. Hen retrieved an airway tube, gently inserted it into her throat, and placed an oxygen mask over her face. Finally, Felisa could breathe again, but there was still the matter of the wax on her face. It required a temperature of 100 degrees to soften it, which meant she would need to be transported to the hospital. Later, back at the fire station, they discovered something chilling. The bracelet had somehow appeared inside the ambulance. Thinking about how Felisa had now survived two bizarre accidents, since buying that bracelet, Chim couldn't shake his growing fear. Just then, Eddie walked over. He noticed the bracelet lying there and reached out to grab it. Chim was convinced the bracelet was cursed,
just to be on the safe side,
and that curses could spread, but Eddie wasn't buying it. He tossed his glove aside and went to pick it up. The moment Eddie touched the bracelet, a firefighter nearby slipped and crashed to the ground. Was it just a coincidence, or was the curse spreading? Chim's unease deepened. The captain sniffed the liquid on the ground and discovered the slippery culprit, gasoline.
Evacuate the firehouse now.
Definitely spreading.
The woman was gasping with a stab wound caused by a crystal. Strangely, those around her suddenly collapsed to the ground as well. When firefighters arrived, they were confused. This was a crystal shop. There were no gas pipelines, no signs of a gas leak. So what had caused everyone to faint? While they tried to make sense of the situation, the weapon launched in the woman's belly caught their attention. According to the shop owner, who had regained consciousness, the object that pierced the woman was a chemical compound. When combined with stomach acid, it released a toxic gas that caused everyone nearby to faint. Fortunately, the situation was uncovered just in time. At that moment, another woman woke up. It was Felisa, a familiar face to the firefighters. Ever since she had purchased a so-called luck-changing bracelet online, misfortunes had followed her everywhere. She had been struck by a falling chandelier at home, had wax poured on her face during a spa visit, and most recently, she visited the crystal shop hoping to cleanse her energy. But it nearly cost her assistant Alexis's life. Could something truly be manipulating these events? Later, Felisa left the shop to drive home, but she quickly noticed a car following her. No matter how many turns she made, the car stayed close behind. She immediately called 911, but before they could arrive, her focus on the car distracted her. She didn't see the construction ahead in the next moment. Her car was buried under a massive pour of asphalt. Sergeant Grant arrived at the scene shortly after and managed to stop the car that had been following Felisa. But by then, Felisa's car was completely trapped beneath hardened asphalt. Soon, firefighters arrived, but by then the asphalt had solidified. They were at a loss. Trapped inside the car, Felisa was running out of air. That's when Ed came up with an idea, using a blowtorch. He heated the asphalt until it softened. With enough heat, the slab of asphalt could finally be removed. Once the car door was freed, Felisa was rescued just in time. All was revealed during Sergeant Grant's interrogation of the driver. The man was the one who had sold Alexis the fake bracelet. When he discovered that Felisa was a celebrity, he panicked. Exposing his fake artifact business could ruin him. He had been trying to retrieve the bracelet ever since, first at her house, then at the spa where he knocked over the wax, and finally at the crystal shop. There, during a confrontation with Alexis, he accidentally stabbed her in the struggle. His last attempt had been to follow Felisa home, but it ended in his arrest. And yet one question remained unanswered. Why had the chandelier in Felisa's home suddenly fallen? Could there really be some mysterious force at work? A tenant, to avoid being evicted, actually filled the bathtub with cement, solidifying him inside. Firefighters approached to inquire about the situation. The man insisted he couldn't leave, claiming he made a promise to wait for someone. It seemed he had some psychological issues. The man was shaking uncontrollably. The concrete was expanding, restricting blood flow, leading to compression syndrome. They needed to get him out now and start intravenous fluid fast.
You out. Get that away from me!
No matter how the firefighters persuaded, he stubbornly refused to leave. He believed they were deceiving him.
They don't think like us. They're from another place. I know you think I'm stupid, but I'm not.
Just when everyone was at a loss,
You're here.
all firefighters were baffled. But the man looked oddly ecstatic. Seeing this, Casey suddenly understood.
Otis, keep the light on.
He quickly put on a headlamp and instructed the team to do the same.
Marvin. Listen, don't tell anyone you had to come in disguise, okay?
The man excitedly complied, saying he felt numb all over. Casey lied to him, saying it was part of the plan, and praised him for doing a great job. Then the paramedics started and for drip for the man. Casey began drilling the cement. At first, the man was terrified, but with reassurance from the firefighters, he felt courageous. The cement was soon broken through, and they quickly lifted the man out.